Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning.
And we are here to entertain you today and talk about all things alternative energy, electric vehicles, and planet-saving initiatives. As always, when you ask questions, we will entertain the majority of them, maybe all of them. It depends on how many we get. Let us know who you are, where you're coming in from, what part of the world, in other words. And it's always fascinating for all of our audience members to see the wide reach that these podcasts have. The picture behind us, this is in Bavaria, which is southern Germany. And this is a farmhouse that I just stumbled across driving around the area where I was born. And I wanted to share this with you because you can see how large this is. Half the house is lodging in the front, and it's usually multiple families. By the way, back there, they don't change cars and homes, every few years. These are multiple generations, and these homes are passed down through generations. And as it grows, typically they need a lot of space like this. So this more than likely is a single-family home. The back portion that you see there, which is more than half of the house, is where they kept livestock. And, cows, pigs, chickens, anything that they wanted to keep out of the weather in the winter. And so it made for an interesting living arrangement. I remember my son and his family and our family stayed in one of these bed and breakfasts in Bavaria. And the one that he was in was this type of farmhouse that still had active livestock.
Oh.
They were in the upstairs area there. And it was summertime, and the odors were definitely, indicating that there was some livestock down below. But that's part of what nature does here in this area of the country or of the world. And you can see they take extraordinarily good care of their homes. You'll see in the summertime geraniums and flowers on all of the balconies. They paint their homes and keep them meticulously looking like this. And anyway, it's an interesting picture that I wanted to share with everyone. Looks like we've got some YouTube questions coming in.
Yeah, Stephen Rose from YouTube says, good morning from Boulder City, Nevada. Good morning, Stephen. Thanks for coming and joining us this morning.
And then another YouTube, Deadshot Investor, Cartagena, Colombia. Ah, there we go. We're getting out of the U.S. now. A little while later, we'll be talking about some of the stock market craziness that occurred last week. I think that's going to be a fun discussion.
Most definitely. Luck Dragon from YouTube says that he finally caught our show when it started. Pleasure being here from Northern Virginia. Luck Dragon, glad to see you here this morning.
Welcome. YouTube, Trucker Alistair is with us again. Nice to see you guys again, likewise. I noticed your comment, Trucker, on a video that the guys had posted where one Saturday morning I was in the shop and in shorts. It was summertime, and we had just lost one of our janitors. And I'm pretty meticulous about the upkeep of our facilities and keeping that image alive. So I was there mopping, and my son, the video photographer, comes over and he says, "You want to do a quick YouTube video?" I said, "Sure, whatever." So I said something like, "So you want to be a multimillionaire? Well, when you lose one of your janitors, you end up at times doing stuff like this." And that thing almost went viral. I mean, it was a very popular video. It's also one of the few videos where I'm not wearing sunglasses. So there's a clue for you guys. If you want to look this up on YouTube, you may find it and see what Pete Gruber looks like without sunglasses.
It's definitely just a matter of you do whatever it takes to keep things running.
Totally, yes, yeah.
You're not supposed to announce that, Pete.
Oh.
Giving away the secrets of it.
Giving away secrets, all right. My social media
Martin
team.
Green says, hi guys from the UK. Livestock One building means lower taxes.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting angle I had not considered. And of course, it also means lower bills in that you're growing some of your own food. And I guarantee you, by this house somewhere is a massive garden that comes with it, and fruit trees. We're talking cherry and peaches and pears, and so it's a wonderful lifestyle.
I was thinking, you mentioned to me before the show that building in the front is probably more like a grist mill or something like that as well. So do you think they would be even growing their own grains and making their own bread?
Most likely, yes. There's a little creek that runs by there. There was a actual water-powered mill on the other side of that building, which belonged to this property. And you know, you can't buy these houses in Bavaria anymore because they're in such demand. And of course, like I said, the families, these are passed down through generations. So finding any property like this is a needle in a haystack experience.
Sure, that makes sense.
Oh, the other thing that they don't allow, the Bavarian government is very strict about this development. You're not going to find any tract homes being built behind this house. They lock down the zoning to the point where all you can do is maybe paint your house, no expansion, and they try to preserve what they have.
Makes sense. Thomas Curtis is saying hi from New Zealand. Good morning, Thomas, or good evening for you.
Good morning. Boy, we're really getting around the world. Here's another one, Instagram. Frank Iram, hi from Paris, France. Welcome, Frank. And then TikTok, we've got Smuggler. He's one of our regular audience members. Need to do anything software-wise to the car. Not sure what you're referring there, Smuggler.
Smuggler, yeah. Ask further and please elaborate. We'd like to be able to answer that. I'm not sure exactly what we would have to be able to answer from that question so far.
And we've got our first sunglass question. I knew it was coming. TikTok, user with a string of about 12 numbers after it. Is it very sunny in there? And two little emojis with happy faces with sunglasses. Yes, that's part of it. It's sunny in here, but of course there is a much deeper underlying reason why we wear sunglasses, which will be revealed at some point in the future, and it keeps our audience in suspense.
On Instagram, Thaddeus the Great, the cog and artwork is something.
Oh, I agree. I think it's a magnificent building. TikTok, Bill Wood from Key West. Good morning. Good morning, Bill. How are you doing?
Good morning, Bill.
So I've got my first news item for you guys. If we're ready for that, we'll get back to the questions here shortly. It looks like Tesla is continuing to progress on the installation of the new Model 3 production line at the Fremont factory, which is being revamped for Project Highland. Now, this apparently is a project that is unofficially a reduced price vehicle, and it's a code name for the revamp of the Model 3, which is going to be a mass-marketed vehicle called at this point at least, the Project Highland. It is reportedly receiving new infotainment upgrades, but interior simplifications. You don't hear that often. You hear interior improvements. In order to reduce price, something's got to go. So they call it interior simplifications and a reduction of components. The ultimate goal here, of course, is to get to a $25,000 EV, at which point in time currently would be the tipping point to motivate the rest of the world to switch over to electric vehicles because they're cheaper than internal combustion engine cars. Now, the other thing I wanted to share with you is the Fremont factory, as we call it now, is going to have a 250-acre expansion. And the Fremont factory actually used to be called the NUMMI plant when it belonged to GM, N-U-M-M-I. And it is a huge facility. My son and I went there years ago to Fremont, and it is 4.5 million square feet. What is so amazing was this plant was actually emptied, run down, abandoned by GM, and Tesla bought it for $42 million.
Wow.
In the heart of Silicon Valley, mind you, that much acreage. So it was an enormous bargain. And but the other thing that I found interesting was before it became the Fremont Assembly Plant and belonged to Tesla, it was, of course, called NUMMI, and it was operational between 1962 and 1982. Now, this shocked me. They said that employees at the Fremont plant, or the NUMMI plant, were considered the worst workforce in the automotive industry in the United States, according to leaders of the UAW. That's an interesting twist.
Wow.
Very labor type organization. So the relationship apparently between workers and plant supervisors was adversarial. And when mistakes were made, for example, on the assembly line, allegedly, they continued to let the line run and plan to repair things later. And that later never happened, and cars actually ended up being shipped out with those mistakes. It goes further. Employees, the relationship between management and employees had deteriorated to the point where employees drank alcohol and smoked marijuana on site, and then they put in parentheses, before it was legal. They were frequently absent, enough so that production lines at times had to be shut down. And the worst part was there were even petty acts of sabotage, such as putting a Coke bottle inside the door panels so that it would rattle and annoy the customer who eventually bought the car. Well, GM by 1982 had had enough. They closed the Fremont assembly plant and they laid off all of the thousands of workers that worked there. And then it sat empty for quite some time until Elon and company came along and were able to purchase this plant for a fraction of its real value.
That is just fascinating. I know in college, looking at project management and quality management stuff, that story that you told of the Fremont plant where they would just let cars go through the production line, that's made management textbooks worldwide about when you want to do quality, you don't do that.
Yeah, it violates all the rules, yeah, without a doubt. So it looks like from TikTok, we've got a question from Smuggler. When you upgrade from a 60 to 90 kW battery, do you have to do anything with software to the car? Yes. Virtually anything you touch on a Tesla requires a firmware redeploy. We're talking about even simple modules like a trunk control module. The software brings everything back into alignment, and you can have that done at either a Tesla service center, provided it's not a salvage car, or with independents like us. Or if you're software savvy, you could do some of this yourself. We used to have people that, before we got Toolbox, the subscription of Toolbox, that actually went into black screen Linux and were able to decipher the CAN signals coming down the pike and realign things like this.
Wow, that is fascinating itself. Now, the 90 battery is not so large that you need to have things structurally changed inside the car. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. 90 is the largest battery that you can go and still maintain any kind of warranty with Tesla.
Okay. And so the cars that have the 100 batteries, they must have a different frame structure or heavier frame structure then, correct?
Correct, yes. And airbag deployment changes, even seat placement, and there are a number of things like that in the suspension that are altered with that heavier battery pack. All right, from YouTube, Stephen Rose. There's a name that we've seen before. Welcome, Stephen. He says, the real reason for the sunglasses is that the future of Gruber Motors is so bright that it is necessary to have proper protection. I think you nailed it, Stephen.
I think that's a good one, Stephen.
You know, we're going to be collecting these sunglass reasons, and when we do our final reveal, these will be shared.
Most definitely. On YouTube, from Luck Dragon. I've seen posts that keeping my Tesla, he has a 2021 Model Y, LR owner, so it's long range, around 60 to 80% charge daily can help keep the cells healthy if not traveling. Is this accurate?
That is very true, yes. 80% is the ideal range, actually. And again, supercharging, highly convenient, but it should not be a steady diet of charging.
The main reason that I've heard of this, and I definitely believe to be true as well, is that when you get over 80% charge, you're starting to put a lot of heat into those batteries. And it's the heat inside the battery pack that ends up killing the battery pack over time. Yeah. So keeping it charged to 80% or less is always recommended.
We've got a YouTube question from Tim Rollins. He says, what do you think of the future of hybrids in 10 years? Are we just in a weird transition period from gas to EV? You know, I have some very strong opinions about any manufacturer that currently is sticking with hybrids.
Right.
It just simply does not make any sense. We've gone well beyond that in terms of technology and economics. But again, talking about the GM Corvette, the new hybrid, They're very proud of that hybrid in that they're putting some electric components into this Corvette. As I said in my previous video, they're going the wrong direction, guys. The goal is to eliminate fossil fuel burners, not make them more efficient or make hybrids. What you have now is a Prius on steroids. And you have twice the amount of maintenance. You've got an electric drivetrain and you've got the old ICE stuff that you have to maintain and probably take through emissions and all the rest of that and tune-ups and oil and fluid changes and fan belts. And again, as my video said, GM, what were you thinking? This is the wrong direction. So we are, I'm not sure we're in a weird transition. I think that the weirdness comes from manufacturers that just simply don't get the new direction and are not getting on board with it.
Well, yeah, Toyota, we had talked about in our last podcast, is one of the companies that seems to be really resisting the EV transition and moving toward hybrids. I know we'll be talking a little bit more about Toyota later today. However, it makes economic sense what you're saying. Why would companies want to continue to persist to have a drivetrain and engine that has 2,000 plus points of failure when they could swap that out for an electric motor that has fewer than 100 points of failure?
Right.
The simplicity makes the EV much cheaper to produce long term, and it's going to be about dollars and cents, guys.
And then from a performance standpoint, they're not gaining anything. I think the aggregate total horsepower in this is like 1,000. Well, if they made it 100% EV drivetrain, look what Lucid is doing with those kinds of drivetrains.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, real quick, we had a comment. Oops, wrong one.
I remember that on the video.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we had a comment on one of our Corvette videos actually. And what do you think about this, Pete? The guy's excuse was it's enabling it to do touring, so it gets more range out of there. Is that not a good trade-off, you think?
Yeah, there's some argument or convenience in having a gas tank in a car in that your recharge times become 3 to 5 minutes. But really, we're not paying attention to the planet here now. We're going in a different direction. And, it has to be economically unwise to do this as well. And of course, the price point on this car is going to be higher because you've got an 8-cylinder engine you're putting in there, and it's an archaic design. They're not going to be making these anymore. And
Plus
then you
batteries
have
getting
issues.
better,
And then you have these issues like certain states now are mandating that you can't even sell anything with an ICE engine in it after 2035. So, but as someone else pointed out in the video, they said, well, it's not the first time the GM has made a mistake. So Instagram, question from Thaddeus the Great. Can you repurpose the cells though? I'm tuning for the first time. He's tuning in for the first time, and I'm just commenting as the video progresses. Thank you. We've got a whole segment here coming up shortly about J.B. Strobel's Redwood Materials Recycling Company. And yes, these cells are almost 100% recyclable compared to the old automotive stuff that never even got close to 100% recycling. So that's the other compelling reason to allow this migration to occur.
Yes. On YouTube, Junior Wigan. Good morning, Junior. Have you heard any release date on the Cybertruck?
Yeah, we actually talked about that last week. Production starts summer of this year, and there will be a ramp in production toward the end of this year. So I'd say by 2024 spring, we should start seeing some Cybertrucks.
Mm-hmm. Again from YouTube, Mustafa Osman M. Does the electrification of future cars with less moving mechanical parts reduce the amount of money mechanics make with internal combustion cars? Great question.
Yeah. Well, the level of disruption that we're seeing right now with transportation is affecting many industries, and the auto mechanics are definitely square in the center of a lot of that. It's going to change the way things are done. Jobs may be eliminated. Mm-hmm. And of course, the biggest problem is there's 780,000 mechanics in the United States doing low-tech auto type work, meaning non-EV type work. Are they going to be able to transition and acquire the new skills necessary? And will that transition allow them to keep their income that they're currently making doing ICE vehicles? Those are going to be tough questions to answer.
On TikTok, Chris Denham has a really interesting question here. It may lead into one of the news stories that you wanted to talk about. Chris asks, is auto battery recycling impossible and is less green in the long term?
It depends on what kind of auto battery recycling we're talking about. If we're talking about the traditional methods, and by the way, for 40 years, we've been working on critical power equipment, which still runs on lead-acid batteries. Granted, they're absorbent glass mat, which is the next generation of gel cells, but it still has sulfuric acid and lead plates and plastic. Those batteries have been recycled now for many decades, and they actually do get reused. There's no such thing as virgin lead in lead-acid batteries anymore. It's oftentimes been recycled a number of times.
Isn't it true that the lead-acid batteries have a recycling rate of up and over 90%, somewhere in the 90 to 95% range of all materials in these lead-acid batteries ends up getting recycled?
You know, I don't know that for sure, but that could be an interesting statistic.
Well, we'll ask if one of our
social
one
media
of our guys
guys,
can
We can
take
do
and
some
do a
research
quick
on
look up on that.
What we do know, and we're certain about, and this is feedback from the companies like Redwood Materials, is that lithium-ion battery recycling is approaching 100%. It's like 99%. Everything can be recycled and is. So again, that is a much better earth-friendly, planet-friendly battery recycling technology.
And it does exist in the world today.
You know, there's a interim step too. They don't necessarily go directly to Redwood Materials and get crushed and converted back to the components and the metals and the raw materials. Oftentimes, these batteries end up for a temporary second use, such as power walls in homes with solar systems. Or we've got a company in Florida that's putting them into golf carts. Anything that requires an enormous amount of DC storage, a lithium-ion pack, even aged, will outperform a lead-acid battery.
You know, I even saw a most interesting article, to me anyway, on the media this last week, where a high school teacher in India repurposes used and expended laptop batteries, the lithium-ion batteries that power your laptop. He puts them underneath the seat of the little scooter motorbikes and turns the motorbikes into electric motorbikes.
Very cool. And I suppose if you get a lot of scrap batteries like that, you end up selecting the best cells and then repurposing those and mounting them into bricks, basically.
Yeah, he mounts them into bricks, puts them underneath the seat of the vehicle, of the little moped scooter, and then they go around that way.
In the most recent earnings call that Tesla did, Elon admitted that they are working, they have a lot of new products in the pipeline. And, but he didn't elaborate and say exactly what those were, but they also alluded to the fact that they will be entering other sectors. Don't know what those are yet, but Tesla has historically branched into many different sectors: robotics, Neuralink, even tunneling, you know. So who knows what else is in the pipeline for them, no pun intended. But the next discussion of different platforms is going to be the March 1st Investor Day that Tesla is going to be doing here in a couple of months or so. So that's one that we'll definitely want to see. And it's no secret that the automaker's been attempting to develop the $25,000 mass market vehicle. Tesla, by the way, also slashed prices, as we know, by as much as $13,000 in the US in early January. And the move definitely catalyzed the company's movement toward its 1.8 million unit production goal for the year. They're still shy of 2 million, but that's a pretty impressive number based on how quickly it's been progressing.
You know, I've heard that that's actually more of a strategic shift on Tesla's part as well. Elon Musk has been complaining about how the tradition in automotive manufacturing is similar to the traditional sales cycle in many industries. You don't sell a lot at the beginning of your quarter. You don't sell a lot in the first quarter at the beginning of your year. And then at the end of each quarter, and especially at the end of the year, you just push like gangbusters to try to make your sales goals. Elon's saying, I want to flip this on its head. Let's cut the price early. It shouldn't matter if I'm delivering a car on December 31st or if I'm delivering a car on January 3rd. At the end of the day, I'm delivering a car. What does the date on the calendar mean? So part of this is definitely a strategic goal for them to try to push out more cars here in the first quarter so that they don't feel quite the pressure to have to push things out at the end, because the investors like to see the numbers at the end of the day.
You know, it's going to make the employees a lot happier too. And you know, all of the Tesla employees we talk to, the majority of them complain about the fact that end of quarter is always a insane push to get vehicles out, and year end is even worse. So yeah, leveling that out a bit definitely would resolve some things.
And just to insert this here, a couple of different blog articles and battery sites, they did show that a lot of countries have reached over 80% recycling on lead acid, but the lead acid battery itself, depending on how it's made, is up to 98% recyclable.
Is that right?
Thank you, Jesse, very much for that follow-up.
Well, that's approaching lithium-ion. Not that we want to continue with that technology, but that's commendable. It definitely helps the planet. All right. Staying with that for a moment.
Yeah.
The batteries that we take out of the UPSs, even the simple 12-7 battery, it's a 12-volt, 7-amp-hour battery. It's about this big. When that goes out to be recycled, what they do is they cut the top off, recycle the plastic. They then pour out the sulfuric acid. They neutralize that with baking soda. Now you have salt water, which can safely be flushed down a drain. They take out the lead plates, they melt those down, and the rest of the plastic gets recycled as well. So yeah, it does make sense that you would have a high percentage of recycled product available from that effort.
Oh, yeah, by all means. Thaddeus the Great mentioned again to us, gas to EV. Homes like the one in the background has a stream of water. Would they be available for introducing hydro-powered charging stations?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I could see, you know, any of these natural sources of energy, wind and water, have been traditionally used to drive equipment that can generate power or electricity. It's a bit small, but yeah, you could definitely run some lights with it in this home.
Most definitely.
You know, the other thing I find fascinating, staying on this subject with the Bavarian farmhouses, even 20 years ago, driving through the Bavarian countryside, it wasn't uncommon to see solar panels up on the roofs.
Oh, really?
And this is a country, unlike Arizona, where it's cloudy like 80% of the time. Rainy, cloudy, you know. The fact that the Germans have made that strong a commitment to alternative energy sources has always been inspiring.
That is remarkable to me to hear about, because Germany being up in Northern Europe, many people don't realize that the latitudes of Northern Europe are well north of the northernmost latitudes here in the United States. We talk about and complain if you're living up in the northern U.S., up along that, you know, in the Dakotas or Minnesota or Montana, Washington, or up along the Rust Belt, as it's now called, that solar doesn't work for you. Yet here we are in Germany, in Bavaria, a latitude that's further north even than our northernmost borders, and they're adopting solar in wide scale. And that's been happening for the last 20 years or more.
Inspiring. So it looks like from TikTok, JBark540, hello TikTok. He says, dude, you look like David Lee Roth. Now, is that me or Mark?
I don't know, but I think it would be a compliment either way.
It would be. Thank you for the compliment.
Chris Denham, also from TikTok. Can the present power grid service the market if everybody went EV? That's one answer that you would have.
That question came up so often in our podcasts, the concern that the grid will not be able to handle the rapid EV adoption, which is actually exponentially increasing. So we did a video, and when we do videos, we have to do research. And that research surprised us all. It turns out, and you can see the video, by the way, on our YouTube channel, Gruber Motors, and it's one of the recent ones, Can the Grid Handle EV Adoption? We were surprised. There is a lot of infrastructure improvement taking place with the grid, and for economic reasons, it is keeping pace with the proliferation of electric vehicles. Didn't get any sort of opinions or articles that indicated that we were in trouble of any kind. And I think Jesse has something to add.
Yeah, so for this question in particular from Chris, the key way that the question is phrased, can the grid handle it if everybody went to EVs? So the answer to that question is actually no. If everybody immediately right now switched to EVs, we'd be in trouble. The good thing is, and we go into depth in our video about this, is the rate at which we're adopting EVs and the rate at which the grid is, the infrastructure is changing. We're nowhere near in any kind of trouble or anything like that. So if instantly everybody had an EV, yeah, we'd be in trouble. But that's just not the case. It's not possible.
Good point. Good point, yeah. All right, TikTok, George Pulaski. Hello, George. Welcome. Is it really bright in there? Yeah, I would say it's bright.
Yeah, it's reasonably bright
Yeah.
in here. You can look at the reflection off of our sunglasses and see some of the brightness, actually.
We actually encourage our audience members to get their own sunglasses out, and it's possible that what we're seeing may be something that becomes visible to you as well.
On YouTube, Martin Green asks, my wife has a Toyota CHR as a rental car today. Open the door, and the message on the dash is window open on a brand new car. What's the other software like?
Don't know. What is a Toyota CHR, by the way? Are you familiar with it?
I believe the Toyota CHR is one of those small SUV style cars, kind of like the 5-door hatchback.
Okay.
And I just think it's a little bit humorous. The door is opened and the dash says the window's open.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not seen those kind of snafus on other software on other cars. I happen to own a Volvo EV. I happen to drive a Tesla Model S as well. I've not seen that on either of those. You have the Roadster, and I haven't seen anything like that as well, I would assume.
So what we're hoping here is that with that kind of a software error that this car does not have full self-driving, and if it does, that he does not end up using it.
By all means.
Okay. YouTube, Martin Green, welcome. He says, UK government does not encourage hybrids. Well, that's a smart government, in my opinion. As I said in my video, by the way, and I was incorrect, when I did the GM video and the Corvette hybrid, I said, my wife and I owned Priuses in the last century in the late 90s. It turns out the Prius didn't really come out until 2001. So it was around that time frame.
Okay.
But, it is a technology that has outlived its usefulness. It was cool in 2000 when you could go 50 miles without, or 50 miles per hour, range. And, of course, now with EVs, it just seems like it's outlived its usefulness.
One of the things that I remember back from that time era, the Toyota Prius was getting all the press for, wow, we can do 50 miles to the gallon. I happened to have at the time a 1992 Honda Civic VX, just a little car. It was not a lot smaller than the Toyota Prius. And darn it, I could get 55 miles a gallon on that car.
Is that right?
And it was not a hybrid.
Very cool. All right. Yeah, Europe had a lot of those small cars too, and I'll bet they saw the same kind of mileage performance.
I bet that they did. So good to hear from you again, Martin.
So Electric Car Reports is saying that, and here's the headline, Ford reduces Mustang Mach-E prices to significantly increase production in 2023. So it looks like Ford was paying attention when Elon dropped pricing, and they saw how successful that was as well. My only concern there, though, is Tesla is swimming in margin and profits. Ford and the rest of them are not. So a price cut for these guys is going to be a bit more difficult than it was for Tesla.
Definitely is. They're going to have to be strategic about this. Ford is trying to position their Mustang to compete with the Tesla Model Y. Mm-hmm. Definitely, they took notice to what Tesla did. Ford actually went one step further than Tesla as well. When Tesla announced their price drop, they made some of their customers angry because, hey, I bought my Tesla 2 weeks ago and now the price just dropped by $20,000. Ford avoided that by saying, yeah, we're dropping our price. Anybody who's taken delivery of a Mach-E in 2023 is going to get the difference back as a refund.
Outstanding. Okay.
So they're helping their customers to reduce the pain and the bad press. Although I think the reality is, if you buy a car, you're not going to buy it today and sell it in 3 months.
Right.
You're going to buy a car to keep for somewhere between 5 and 10 years, or maybe even longer if the car lasts longer. What's the car going to be worth in 5 to 10 years? That's the question to ask, not the question of, did I overpay for the car today and am I going to sell it tomorrow?
Right. Good point. Guys, I have an image I want to throw up. It's the what kind of girl you should marry if you're a car guy. So bear with us. I'll pop up the image. For those of you that can't see it, TikTok, I believe. Can they see our images, guys?
TikTok cannot.
Cannot. Okay. I'll just read it to you guys then. All right. So they're saying here, marry a girl who says things like, I'm proud of you. I can't believe you're mine. You're right. I was wrong. I can never get my wife to say that. You can do it, baby. And finally, 1,000 horsepower seems completely reasonable for a family car. Now, if you can find a girl like that, she is worth marrying. Good luck, though.
Good luck with that. That you're right, I was wrong. That's the one that'll never happen.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Looks like we got some more questions. From YouTube, Luck Dragon. You've been here before. Welcome back. Never believed GM was serious about going EV when they released the most inefficient EV yet, the Hummer EV. Now they're spending $1 billion on a new V8 technology and 1/3 less on EVs. Good point, Luck Dragon.
Yet Biden says they're the ones leading the EV charge.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
From Mustafa Osman from YouTube. Thanks for answering my question. You're very welcome. He likes the shades.
Cool. All right, Mustafa. Where are you from, by the way? You can tell us later on. YouTube, Brian Martin. Hybrids and OEM's way of holding on to the profitable service and parts business? Question mark. Possibly. But remember, like we said, there are governments and states that will not allow the sale of these cars anymore by 2035. And so it seems to be a fool's errand to continue to make ICE vehicles in any way, shape, or form, including hybrids.
You know, the parts service business is definitely the bigger moneymaker for a lot of the traditional OEMs. It's one of the questions that we've had of Tesla in the past. It's a very novel idea for your manufacturer to have all their own service centers. But there are also an awful lot of parts on a car besides the motor and drivetrain that are going to be able to bring revenue to the OEMs. Things from, whether it's your door panels or handles or all of the driving infrastructure, the brakes, the wheels, the axles, all that stuff is still there. It's only the actual engine and transmission that has been replaced with the electric battery and the electric motor.
You know, the other thing that I picture for these incumbents, granted, everyone likes to go just-in-time inventory, so you don't really build up any large stock. But I can't imagine that these incumbents that have been building ICE vehicles for many, many decades, well into last century, don't have a bunch of parts that they need to get rid of and put into cars and convert to cash. So that could be one concern, is that they finally decided we've got to get rid of all of this 8-cylinder inventory, pistons, rings, engine blocks and all that. The second part is their production lines were geared toward ICE vehicles for many, many decades. What do you do with those? Scrap them, turn them into EV lines overnight? Maybe they're still trying to get some use out of those.
Very possible. And when it takes, at a minimum, several weeks and possibly several $1 million to do just a simple retrofit for a new model year, think of what's going to have to happen in order to do a retrofit for an entirely new technology like that.
So Charles Hatcher from YouTube, he says, I like the YouTube feed better. And he's talking to Smuggler. Yeah, so if you guys are on TikTok, we'll eventually get you guys some of the other enhancements that we have for the other platforms. But in the meantime, you can always go to YouTube.
No, this is Smuggler.
This is Smuggler.
This is Smuggler, yeah.
Okay.
I also think there might have been a typo. I think he put TT. He likes the TikTok feed better. Or did I miss that?
I don't know.
I have the...
Either way, Smuggler, we're happy you're here.
Yeah. Now, not only do you have the YouTube feed, obviously, we want to make sure that everyone knows we've got the feed going up on Spotify as well. That way you can look at us on a number of different channels.
And by the way, you'd be doing us a huge favor by going to Spotify, because some of these platforms require you to have a minimum amount of viewers.
Right.
And then you end up getting additional benefits, like we can advertise, we monetize, that sort of thing. We're not quite there with Spotify yet. So if any of you want to help us, go to Spotify and sign up for our channel.
Another one of the new channels that we have is YouTube Shorts. And in fact, Summy Samuel has asked a question on YouTube Shorts. First, thanks for watching on that channel. Hello, love your videos, guys. Watching you from Saudi Arabia.
Excellent. Welcome. And you know, the difference between the regular YouTube channel and YouTube Shorts is, if you're familiar with the Shorts on Facebook, for example, or TikTok, they're very short. And that's why they call them Shorts, 15 seconds, 20, maybe 30 seconds. Whereas our videos on YouTube generally require, you know, sit down with a beer, a cup of coffee or whatever, and be ready to invest about 5 or 10 minutes to get the full story.
Right. Martin Green is talking back to us again, or saying that the pace of infrastructure development in the UK does not provide enough. I think that's a comment that refers back to the question asked earlier. Is the infrastructure going to be sufficient if everyone moves to EV?
Okay.
Actually, for that question as well, we might do a little deeper dive on that, because our grid video is mostly specific to here in the U.S., and we actually did hear on the last couple episodes that the UK grid is leaving some to be desired. So maybe we'll come out with a video on that.
Okay. Trucker McAllister, YouTube, one of our steady audience members, he said, there's a guy in Bremen, Germany, Holger Laudeli. He sells solar panels to put on your balcony veranda. But what people don't know is that power is very lazy and chooses always the shortest route.
That's actually very true. When you know, the power is always looking for the easiest path to go from positive to negative. That's what ends up causing batteries to die over time.
YouTube, Martin Green. Prius is popular in London as it avoids paying congestion charge. You know, we had the same thing here in Arizona when we got our Priuses. We were actually able to use the HOV lane even if you didn't have a passenger.
Right.
It was a coveted cloud plate that you got, nice and blue. And so we enjoyed that because if you were commuting and it was just you in the car, you were actually able to use a lane that was virtually unused at the time.
You know, even though those lanes are a little more used now than they used to be, Arizona, we're lucky. They're a state that allows you to still use that lane, but only if you have a fully electric vehicle now. So I am a proud owner of a cloud plate.
Are you? Yeah?
Yes.
Good for you. YouTube, Martin Green. Oh, we already got that. And looks like a TikTok comment from Chris Denman. When is the U.S. market going to receive all the chips needed to produce more vehicles? You know, my opinion on that is that we have global supply chain problems. There's no doubt about that. But what I find being in business is that customers that do volume get preferential treatment. No one really likes to admit that. But someone as large as Tesla is not going to be treated the same way as a small, rising EV manufacturer that only buys a fraction of what Tesla would buy. So they have an advantage, but nonetheless, there's still a supply chain problem. Although, have you guys noticed it's improved tremendously? I mean, a year ago when we started construction on our Gruber Motor Company building, I couldn't even get copper pipe out of Home Depot. We had to go down every day and wait for someone to show up and grab it before someone else did.
Yeah, supply chain issues are slowly thawing out. Chip capacity is, while it's been a challenge, it is something that is continuing to get a little bit better. Here in Arizona, we know that Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing is building 2 fabrication plants. They're going to produce some of the most advanced chips in the world right here in our backyard. Mm-hmm. And some of those 3 nanometer chips are some of the ones that go into automobiles and to other areas. Intel, which already has a large presence here in the Chandler area, down in the southern part of the Phoenix metro area, is also building a new fabrication plant. They're adding $20 billion of investment to Taiwan Semiconductor's $40 billion. Mm-hmm. So slowly the chip manufacturing is coming online as well. And being that it's going to be US based, there's a lot of excitement in the industry that the supply chain issues, once they get behind us in the next couple of years, will stay behind us.
Mm-hmm. Looks like a YouTube question from Mustafa Osman. I'm from Ottawa, Canada. Welcome. Might as well throw in another question. EV cars pop up just as much as smart cars. What barriers do you face when you tackle cars all the way down to the component level? What Mustafa is talking about here is an independent EV repair organization. We do not have access to schematics, test points, drawings, or even the wide range of parts that the OEM service centers enjoy. Those are just things that, especially the software and the schematics, that they don't share with competitors, basically. So the problems we run into are what we've been doing for 40 years, which is we have to reverse engineer. We have to take a module, and there's one in the shop right now. It's called a switch pack module that sits under the dash in a Tesla Roadster. At a Tesla service center, they would take off that dash, get a module from the stock room, pop that in, that car would be functioning. What we end up having to do is take that module out, reverse engineer, create schematics, and then find the components that are defective, which is exactly what we've done. We found 3 bad MOSFETs, metal oxide field effect transistors, in that module. So as time goes by, we become very good at redeveloping the type of tools that we need in order to repair this type of equipment. Now, having said that, this is not the path that most auto shops are going to be able to take because they don't have the technical engineering talent that can reverse engineer, work with electronics, and repair surface mount components on these elaborate circuit boards. So that's where part of this disruption occurs, is that the independent auto shops that are ubiquitous currently with ICE vehicles will not be as plentiful with electric vehicles because of the change in skills that it requires.
I would think that the price behind some of these components, some of these chips and capacitors and transistors, make it so that it's going to be in the future harder to continue to keep a good supply line on some of these parts as well. So, even in the future, when your more traditional mechanic shop, which would typically take out a component, throw it away, put it in a new component, they're going to struggle with some of that anyway.
There's another thing that they're going to struggle with, which is for high volume cars. You can, and that's been around for a while, you can drive down to AutoZone or Checker Auto and buy the part. Mm-hmm. With these particular EVs, like the Roadster that I mentioned, there's nothing at AutoZone that you can get that is Roadster related. The parts have been out of production for 15 years. The only shot at keeping these types of cars running is to have a company do what we do, which is reverse engineer and repair at a component level, because that board is no longer available.
Well, that's an excellent point too, because you look at the landscape right now, you've got so many places. Electromechanica with the Solo, Fisker has come out, Rivian has come out. These are brand new manufacturers. how many of them are going to be around in 20 years?
Good point.
I would bet that a lot of them will not, and will be not just the Tesla Roadster that's sitting out there not being produced anymore, but there are going to be dozens of different brands of cars that could be on the road, except that they're no longer being produced, nor are parts being produced for them.
Unsupported, exactly. And yeah, like you said, history demonstrates that not all of these manufacturers are going to make it.
Yeah, absolutely.
YouTube. Looks like Tucker had a question.
Yeah, we got a couple above him, so it's
Okay, all right. So TikTok, Smuggler. I did mean I like the TikTok feed better. It's closer, so I'm going back to the $25,000 Tesla. Think it will be 2025 before it's produced. You know, we have the same information available that you guys do. It's going to be news reports. It's going to be some speculation from various magazine articles. We don't have a direct line to Tesla to get that kind of information, and you'll find that information like this is closely guarded within these manufacturers because they don't want to, upset the apple cart. I remember a funny story about when Tesla had the P90D Ludicrous, which was at that time their fastest car. And some software guy apparently left some code in the MCU or the Linux computer in the Tesla cars that alluded to the fact that a P100 was coming out. And a hacker on the East Coast found that bit of code and, of course, immediately announced it. And then anybody that was willing to or had a down payment or waiting for their P90D Ludicrous pulled that order because they realized that something better was coming along. So this is just one of many reasons that manufacturers don't release this and keep it close to the chest until there's actually a product and something to be released.
Yeah, I think the best that we found in the press is the very generalized announcement that they are hoping something will be out by 2025, but we don't know for sure either.
Right. Instagram, Anwar, welcome back. Good morning, Mr. Gruber. Hope you're doing well, and hi to your guest.
Well, hi, Anwar. Again, my name is Mark Schaffner. I'm the CFO of Gruber Companies, and I do step in and fill in Zane's very big shoes on occasion.
We should probably remind people what the picture behind us is. This is a Bavarian farmhouse in a region not too far from where I was born. And what I find fascinating about these kinds of houses is they are passed down through many generations. They don't change houses rapidly in Germany, especially southern Germany. And the home looks huge because many families, of course, as the family has grown, live here. But the back half of the house is actually where the livestock is kept. And we're talking about cows, pigs, chickens, goats, sheep. And it was very much a community in these types of houses. You can't see it here, but I guarantee you there's a large garden off to the side there somewhere. Lots of fruit trees on the property. And a basically self-contained living unit. And as you can see, they take very good care of their homes. In springtime, you'll see geraniums on the balconies. They keep the upkeep on the homes is extraordinary. And oftentimes you'll see solar panels. Even 20 years ago when we were driving through these regions, before solar became very popular, you would find that the majority of farmhouses like this were already into solar in a region where it's cloudy most of the time. So anyway, that's the background picture that we wanted to share with you in this podcast.
Stephen Rose from YouTube mentioned something that I think we have mentioned before as well. He said that Zero Labs has introduced a BYOB, Bring Your Own Body, EV platform for older cars. It's a very cool idea. Isn't that similar to the manufacturer we were talking about a couple weeks ago that had the picture of the Porsche 911 that they had converted into an EV? Was that Zero Labs or was that somebody else? I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but our prediction is that this is the next gold rush. A lot of people have cars that they will want to continue to drive, legacy cars, cars from the 60s, muscle cars, family cars or whatever. And a crate engine EV conversion drivetrain will be big business at some point in time. No one that we're aware of yet has a range of options available and support for this kind of effort. So the people that are doing it now end up doing enormous amounts of fabrication, engineering, and so it's not for the faint of heart. It used to be that, you know, with the 60s muscle cars, you could easily get a crate engine, and even a backyard mechanic working in their garage could swap out that drivetrain or that engine. With this EV application, it's not quite that simple yet, but again, it's going to be a huge market. Lots of business there.
By all means, good luck to Zero Labs for that.
Okay, guys, we are at about 56 minutes.
56 minutes, okay. All right, well, we can entertain a few more questions in this session.
Again, from Trucker Alistair on YouTube, he mentions that solar power from the balcony. You put the plug into the female socket, and then the power that you use first is solar instead of the grid.
Okay, seems much more efficient.
And then Chris Denman from TikTok talks about how paying over MSRP has stopped him from buying a new overpriced vehicle.
You know, I heard from one of our local customers here who wanted to buy a Ford F-150. And again, this gets back to dealers are antiquated, unnecessary, and parasitic to some degree. I know it's a powerful statement, but there was another article which we'll share with you later about NADA, who is the state of Mississippi now, is actually fighting the EV manufacturers from selling vehicles directly. I thought we were so far beyond that. You know, this is the information age. The distance between manufacturer and end user has shrunk enormously, and that extra parasitic layer is no longer necessary. But in this particular case, they wouldn't sell them the Ford F-150 for the MSRP. They had jacked the price up well beyond that.
Yeah.
Because of demand, because they could. Well, with direct sales, that's not going to happen. That manufacturer is not going to charge you over MSRP. You may have to wait a bit longer for that vehicle, but you're going to get it at the price advertised. And most people enjoy that much more than paying over MSRP or playing let's make a deal game.
Oh, yes. Well, I can speak from personal experience for that, too. My wife and I had a Kia Soul EV that had done very well for us, but it was getting a little high mileage, and we knew that we needed to have more range than it could offer. When we went shopping, we started by looking at the Ford Mustang, thinking, okay, we've got a car that's somewhere between $45,000 and $60,000. That'd be a great idea. Go to the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Just let's take a look. We saw that there was nothing less than a $10,000, what the dealers called market adjustment, and a market adjustment as high as $25,000. So paying $85,000 for a Ford Mustang EV, I don't think so.
Yeah.
We ended up getting a much nicer car, we feel like, a little Volvo XC40 electric, and we paid MSRP for it. It was the same thing. We didn't want to play those games.
And the reason that NADA is still so potent and powerful is because of the strength of lobbying.
Yeah, by all means. Instagram, Nassim11N. Hey, nice background.
It is a German farmhouse and in the Bavarian region. Let's do one final question and then we'll move on. And we've got a YouTube question from XCube. Any plans to expend or teach others how to fix batteries? Would be great to have a repair shop in Vancouver, Canada, which has lots of Teslas roaming around. You know, this is another question that comes up repeatedly, and our answer is always the same. We do not have the bandwidth to put any training programs in place or to scale and create other Gruber Motor Company operations in other parts of the world. What we are, however, working on is a tutorial video program on our YouTube channel, which will give a lot of this kind of intellectual property and how to do various types of things on electric vehicles, especially Tesla. We're working on it. Nothing has been released yet, but it will be, and that's going to be valuable to shops like this that you know, can review through an index a number of different repair needs for a Tesla and then see an appropriate video for that. All right, well, it looks like we're going to wrap up here. We appreciate everyone joining us. We keep adding platforms. TikTok has been one of our oldest and longest supporting channels.
Pete,
YouTube, yeah.
let everybody know too, we're not going to be live Thursday.
Yes, Thursday we have it will not be a live video. We're going to pre-record it, in fact, right after this session. So if you have questions, we'll have to entertain those Tuesday the following week. So this Thursday, you'll be able to tune in, see a podcast, but we won't be able to entertain your questions.
Any questions that anyone asked today that we didn't get to, we're going to answer them on the next show. So they'll be able to see them on Thursday.
Good point, Richard. As always, we really appreciate our audience. Thank you for joining us.
It's been a true pleasure to be able to spend time with you guys again. I really enjoy getting to know so many of you that are asking questions over time as well. Thank you again.
We'll see you Thursday this week, and yeah, appreciate everyone.